Get going. Everybody, welcome. This is the Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021 meeting of the Cohasset Select Board. We opened the meeting earlier this evening, had an executive session, which we just came out of. So this is now the opening of the public session of the meeting. I'm just going to read through the Zoom protocol, and tonight's meeting will be conducted on the Zoom platform and live streamed on Cohasset 143 TV and on Cohasset's Facebook page. The public is invited to participate through the Zoom platform, which can be accessed using the link provided at the top of the posted agenda. Members of the board and other scheduled participants will be able to participate when called on by the chair. Board members will be able to ask any questions of any participant. All votes taken at this meeting will be by roll call. Members of the public who wish to ask questions on agenda items are asked to utilize the question and answer feature on Zoom, including typing in their name and address. For the public record, we can't read any comments that are anonymous. The chair and vice chair will review the questions and direct them to the appropriate participant for a response. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on Cohasset 143 TV. The first agenda item, and I'll tee it up in case there are people who would like to make public comment, is for any member participating on the Zoom platform who would like to make a comment about a matter that is not on the agenda. If you can do so by plugging your name and address into the Q&A feature, we'll give it a few seconds. And if we see nobody, we will continue on with the agenda. So just for, it looks like we may have a question, but I just want to, the protocol for public comment, because there are matters that aren't on the agenda, the board will accept any comments, but unfortunately we can't speak to them other than maybe letting you know if they're going to be on an upcoming agenda. So appreciate whatever comment we might have. Carrie, do we have anything?
We have a name and address, but I'm waiting for him to type a comment.
Okay.
Still waiting.
Okay.
All right, we have a comment from Darren Souza at 70 Black Rock Road, commenting saying, would like to thank the select board for the forum last week, as well as your diligent follow-up with our families via email, phone, etc. Thank you all. And I believe that is in reference to the baseball and softball field and lighting issues.
Okay, thank you, Darren. All right, we'll continue on with tonight's agenda. The first item is an FY21 budget update with our Finance Director, Don Pyatt, and Town Manager, Chris Senior.
Madam Chair, I just had my apologies for the interruption. I just had a resident text me saying that we're not on Facebook.
Okay.
And I do know that we are having, on the 143 TV side, we did a migration to FiOS, but one of the lines isn't quite hooked up. So there are some residents that may not be able to see it depending on their configuration. So I'd like to be sure we have it on Facebook for those residents that can't watch us on FiOS.
Okay. Tracy and Justine, can you, I want to get going, but can you look into that and make sure we get up as soon as we can?
I'm doing it right now. It's just for some reason taking a little bit of time. It's loading.
Okay.
But we will be up in a second.
Okay. So maybe in the meantime, we can start sharing screens, or Dawn kind of walking us slowly into this substantive discussion.
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. Chris, if you could just share the general fund, the local receipts, that'd be great. So through February 28th, we're at 76.2% of the budget collected. Of that, the local receipts portion of the revenue budget, we're 72.7% collected, primarily due to better than expected results within motor vehicle excise, our penalties and interest, charges for services. Penalties and interest relates to tax liens, deferred taxes collected, and the penalties associated with that. Those are usually, they're unanticipated, they're not budgeted, those revenues, because they're from prior years. So that revenue and the penalties and interest on that are essentially an added bonus for the year for collecting that. Motor vehicle excise, again, we're at 85% of what we budgeted. In a few of the previous meetings, we had talked about the first motor vehicle excise commitment being pretty consistent with the prior year, not seeing much change. So that is expected. We will have another much smaller commitment, which we usually have multiple smaller commitments after the first large initial one. That has been delayed by the registry until May. It still shouldn't affect our collections or anything like that, but we just probably won't see any more large pockets of revenues related to motor vehicle excise until we see that commitment hit the street. And the other one, charges for services, taking a look, most of that revenue or all of that revenue relates to RTF bag collections related to the blue bags. And RTF has been doing much more enforcement up there related to the blue bags. So we've seen a lot more revenue coming in from that, and also from C&D disposal. So that's been good, better than expected results. Year over year, you see about 7.8% decrease. We've been seeing this year over year decrease, but remember, we did decrease our revenue estimates for local receipts by 10%. So we were expecting somewhat of a reduction. However, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, when you look at the percentage of the budget collected, we're still at 72%. So we're still in good shape. You know, there's areas like meals and room tax that we'll be taking a look at. We still have 2 quarters left, and you know, hopefully with a lot of takeout and support for restaurants through this, I'm hoping that we see a little bit more than we may have the first quarter or two. But again, it's really out of our control, and we just have to monitor that and see how it comes in. We have taken into account in next year's budget, as I think we left that flat, and we actually took out the room tax budget just to be conservative. That's it really on the revenue side to note. On the expenditure side, overall, we're at 63.8% expended through February. I took a look through all the line item budgets, through all the departments, not really seeing any issues or things to be alarmed about. Again, you do see in the public safety, that is a bit ahead of target spending wise, only because that's where we have all our COVID related expenses parked in that emergency management department. So that accounts for about 480,000 of that public safety department or function line item is 480,000 of COVID related expenses that will be reclassed to one of the many grants we have, either FEMA, CARES, or once we have more guidance, the new ARPA legislation. And we are still waiting on more guidance from the state on what that money can be used for, what we'll be receiving, and how all that will work. So I will definitely keep everybody updated as I hear more on that and receive guidance from the state. That's all I have on the general fund for an update. I'd like to take questions if anybody has them.
Any questions?
All right, if none, let's move on to sewer. Sewer, we are at 83.3% collected, and as in months past, the largest drivers here are the sewer user charges and the connection fees. We can see that we're almost tripled the connection fee estimates which is good. Sewer use, again, those bills are related to the flow from water. So we've had better than expected water use or increased water use this year, which is resulting in the higher billings for the sewer department. Another thing I think I mentioned last month's meeting is that you'll see the grinder pump maintenance fee revenue at 230%. There's a large surplus there. That's just due to the timing of us, the sewer commission or the department, not the timing of releasing those grinder pumps back to the residents, which I believe at this point, I think everything's been mailed out and the releases have been done. So if I'm wrong, it should be occurring very soon. I know the mailing has been paid for. I just don't know exactly where we're in with the process of the actual release.
Don, quick question on that.
Yes.
Is the grinder maintenance fees, were those built into the purchase or the betterment on the grinder pumps, or is that something people pay through their monthly bills? Do you know?
So the grinder pump maintenance fee is a quarterly fee. It's part of the quarterly bill. And that
So-
was a fee to basically help maintain the grinder pumps, as you know, the commission or the town still own them at that point.
So will that come off of those of us that have been paying that?
Yes. Yes. So
Okay.
next year's budget, we will see nothing budgeted on either side, revenue or expense, for the grinder pump maintenance.
There's some relief for the ratepayer. Corey?
Yeah, on that note, if a resident doesn't sign the paperwork to release the easement, would they still be charged the betterment fee? How does that, can you speak to how that works?
That is a good question. My understanding, I actually don't have an understanding on that piece. I thought that once these releases were sent out, the residents were released. I don't know the exact process for the signatures and how that works. I don't know if Chris has any more on that or if he's talked to them. Sorry to put you on the spot, Chris, but I can get an answer on that for you and get back to you.
Yeah. Okay.
And then from the expenditure standpoint, we're 73% spent. Taking a look at general expenses, 57.5. In line, not seeing any issues there. So far, so good. Moving on to water. Pretty consistent with sewer. Again, water use has been high compared to prior years. We're at 82.4% collected to date overall. Water, the biggest driver is definitely the usage charge. We see it through almost 3/4 of the year. We're already at 96.5% of the budget collected. So that really just shows you the increased usage we've seen in this fiscal year. And again, like sewer, we've seen a big uptick in connections, about 272% collected. So we've collected about $70,000 more than we budgeted on that end. And usage continues to trend ahead of target. So water department should be in good shape by the end of the year and going into next year. The expenditures, 74.4% collected or spent to date. General expenses are doing well, 51.9%. So overall, water really should be in good shape by the end of the year. Any questions on water?
Any questions on water? Nope.
All right, I like that.
I think I'm so grateful to actually have these monthly updates because there is some calm. It's nice to know that some things are going well
Right,
in the world.
I agree. I like doing this. I feel like the more we've done this, it's just, you know, everybody's a little more comfortable that we're on top of things and we get to really show these monthly and everybody's on the same page. So it's been great.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Great. Dawn, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So one quick thing with the state revenues, which I usually follow monthly. I've lost for a couple of months and been busy at work. The state revenues for the income tax year to year 2020 up till now, 2021, their increase is about 6.2%. So the economy from the income tax point of view has really come back quite nicely. The total, I'm sorry, that's for the total mass, but for the income tax, it's up about 8.7% year to year, 2020 to 2021. So it looks like the mass revenue total is going to be above the estimate and above the well above last year. So we're seeing a pretty good return to the mass economy, which is nice.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, a very fragile ecosystem that it is, right? Okay, great. Thanks, Dawn. Chris. Next up is for you to update us on the Superior Officers Association contract ratification.
This agreement, which has been ratified by the burgeoning 2-member unit of the Superior Officers Association, unanimously adopted. It mirrors the patrolman's that was approved back in January. So it's a 1-year contract for FY22 for 2% base increase and a change of the detail rate to $54, which matches most of the other communities. So those are the 2 pieces to this, really. So.
And just to sort of reiterate, most of these contracts, at least the ones that I think this is the second that we've discussed, we're just doing 1 year, which is atypical.
This is done again. This is something we had talked about with all of you, and we reached a consensus that there's uncertainty. That said, it was important to get a contract in place and to give staff something, and then figure out where we're going. Now, as Don has pointed out, there's a lot of things on the horizon. They're not storm clouds this time. I think it's money it's going to be raining out of the sky. I just don't know exactly what we're going to spend it on. So, and we're not sure how the state economy is going to settle back, and so there's still a lot of uncertainty. I would say that it's getting more positive, the uncertainty, right? It's more hopeful uncertainty. That said, there's still a long way to go. So getting these in place guarantees that we can have a clean budget adoption, and then we can start the conversations again once we get a little more clarity to tack on 2 more years and have a normal 3-year agreement. This is the pattern that we've agreed to, and we also asked the schools to share, and they've made a commitment to do the same. So,
Great, thank you. So I believe, unless anybody has any questions for Chris, we would ask for a motion to ratify this contract.
Make a motion, we approve and ratify the Superior Officers Association contract as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions? Great, we'll do a roll call vote. Jack, you're on mute.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Great.
thank you.
Congratulations to our 2 lieutenants. Okay, so this is just a sort of an opening conversation, something that I've been wanting to do for 10 years. I want to have Carrie, I'm going to turn the reins over to Carrie, but just kind of walk us through what a memorial policy might look like, and get some initial feedback from the board, and then we'll see where we go at a subsequent meeting for adoption. This is definitely not happening tonight, but just sort of a discussion, opening up some thoughts about it.
Yeah.
So, Carrie?
Thank you, Diane, and thank you for catching me up on this issue. This is the type of thing that you don't really think about until you're in town government, and then you realize how many requests so many towns have for different memorials across town. And the hope here is that we can standardize it so we have a certain policy to keep our public space looking classy and looking tasteful, and also giving everyone in town the ability to have possible memorials that are tax deductible with certain options. So thank you, Diane, for doing the initial research. I looked at it as well. We kind of did a little, investigation of what some other towns across the state and country have done. And a lot of towns and cities have adopted a memorial policy, making specific requests about what is allowed in certain public spaces. Because again, we know that our public space in our small town is finite. There's not enough spots for everyone who would like a memorial, but this is a really good way to, I think, provide some clarity to what our positions are. So I can share the screen real quick. Diane and I have drafted a possible policy involving both benches and trees as options. If anyone else has any other suggestions besides benches and trees, let us know. We're open to that. I know some towns do some things like rocks, but these benches and trees would consist of having a type of plaque attached to the memorial. And before I share it, the other issue to consider is, what type of person is going to be eligible for a memorial, right? So some towns and cities require a person to have lived in town. Some towns and cities require a person to have lived in town for a certain amount of years. And I'm a little torn on how I feel about that, but I think that it's worth considering, is anyone eligible to apply to buy a memorial for someone, or are we going to put in certain regulations for who would be eligible? So those are all things to think about. I'll show it real quick. While
you pull it up, another one town has, the petitioner has to have lived in town for 25 years to even say, I would like to have a memorial for, and then whoever it's for,
Yep,
has to be also have lived in town for 25 years. So, I mean, there's a lot of extremes and a lot of ways to play with this to make it fair. And I think one of the important initial lines is just about, there are other ways to memorialize people through donations to organizations or at the cemetery.
yep. Chris or Tracy or Justine, could you give me screen sharing capability? It's not letting me.
And one of the reasons we wanted to address this now is, especially over the last number of months, we have had a lot of requests, some of which are, very valid. Some are kind of random. Boy, I'd like to put a bench down at the beach or something, which we don't even own for my friends.
You should all be able to see my screen. Ignore all of my millions of tabs. But this is just a draft that I'll send out to the board after we're done. It's again a policy to standardize how we want to do this, and the hope is that we will, this will make things easier for everyone. So I would like to hear all of your thoughts about, trees and benches, if you think that's appropriate, what possible spaces we might have in town that are open to these things, just some general numbers. And Diane and I took this from some other towns and cities. A tree donation could possibly be 1,000, a bench donation possibly 2,000, again, making these tax deductible. Obviously, once you make the donation, this is not private ownership of the tree or bench. This would then be owned by the town because it would be on public space. But thinking about different criteria for acceptance, obviously the location, thinking about the plaques, right? We would want the plaques to be tasteful and, possibly 2 to 4 inches. It's something to think about. Tree selection, obviously we want it to be a tree that would fit into our town. So like, no palm trees or things that would fit into the native habitat of Massachusetts and Cohasset is something to think about. Same thing for benches. I know some people have rules about, do they need to be bronze? Can they be wooden? Can they be granite? Can they be marble? Right? I know some people think that the marble granite benches sometimes look like a cemetery, right? Do they? So those are things that we can think about in terms of bench, materials, all of that stuff. So again, a little tentative application form for people to fill out, again, making it easier for this to be tax deductible for the donor. Just a lot of things that I want to hear opinions on. I know Diane wants to hear opinions on, but it's a tentative draft of this policy. And as we're getting more and more requests, it does seem like this is something that would be smart for the town to consider. So that's our little update.
Thanks, Carrie. Corey? Comments?
Yeah, no, Carrie, I think, this is a really great kind of starting point. I wonder, have you thought about roping in or including some of the, nonprofit groups in town? I mean, I could see, a process that where, the donation could go to, name whatever organization you want in town, and then that way the tax deduction of the money goes that way, and then it turns into something, with that connection. And that may also make it a little bit easier to, I don't want to say streamline, but prioritize things where, if something comes to us as a sponsorship from another group in town, maybe it kind of gives a little bit more structure to where these donations are coming from, what we're doing with them. Do you think including those groups would be beneficial, or something that we could think about?
Let me clarify what you're asking. Do you mean, so for example, let's say someone makes a donation to Safe Harbor, right? Are you saying Safe Harbor would then use that to benefit their cause, or then the donation would flow through them to the town?
Yeah, that's a great way to try to clarify it. Yeah, maybe a bench would be sponsored by Safe Harbor in memorial to somebody else. So it would be a different mechanism, and then Safe Harbor could come to us with maybe a presentation or a suggestion that has a little bit, I don't want to say more, but a different kind of depth, a different type of backstory.
I mean, I think that's one idea to consider. I don't necessarily think that every family or person wanting to request a memorial would have a specific organization to go through. You know what I mean? But I think that maybe could be an option that we absolutely could think about.
And one of the things that is in the first couple of paragraphs is basically that we encourage people, instead of giving the town $1,000 to buy a bench and take care of a bench and put it someplace in town that makes sense, that they give money to the many organizations in town that need it, so that the philanthropy, the sense that they have, that to make a gift in somebody's honor is actually helping an organization as opposed to just buying something. So I think, but to your point, I do think that one of the things we should consider is, roping in the open space committee, for example, because, personally, I wouldn't want more benches on the common unless we said there's going to be 4 benches max on the common for, in perpetuity until another select board changes their minds. But there are a lot of hiking trails or places where, public space that CPC has bought conservation restrictions on, that might be nice to just sit down, or, Wadley Park, depending on whether that memorial. So I would love to be able to rope in some town committees to help us kind of flesh this out about what really makes sense, where our bush is needed and maybe not. And so I think one of the things I would like to get out of tonight is just, again, have everybody look at it, but also ask Chris and his staff to kind of look at opportunities within this real shell, just for consideration, to say, we would love to have a budget to buy trees. Forget the benches, or however that might play out. Or we don't really have enough places to do trees, but we could use some benches. So that kind of thing. Jack?
Yeah, I think that's along the same line. I like the idea of benches with plaques that names have been added. Frequently somebody dies or whatever, and they really have a need to say something about that. Well, they don't necessarily need a separate bench, but I think it would be, I'll see it on golf courses where they'll have a plaque on the 5th green or whatever, and they'll say this is dedicated to ABC or whatever. And I think that's a much better way of doing it. And then the money can go to Safe Harbor, and all the money should, well, yeah, I'm fond of Safe Harbor, but
Yeah,
but I think the idea of having plaques that you can put your name on, that does two things. It brings the money in, and it puts the money to use rather than to have another bench that we really don't need.
great comments. And Paul, if you have anything to add, otherwise we'll move on, but I would encourage you to send comments.
Yeah, no,
through
I
Tracy.
agree with Jack, where you see these small little, circular plaques that are placed in like walking trails or things like that. It says there's a whole bunch up in Whitney Woods and in the, at the end of Sawyer Street and in various trails in town, and it'll be just a little plaque that's on a rock.
Okay, good input. Obviously, if the public has any input, send it to some one of us and we'll start collecting. It's obviously, it's something I want to do. It's not a priority in the middle of town meeting preparation, but it's something I want to get a handle on because there are a lot of requests that I just keep telling people, we'll get back to you. So anyway, thanks, Carrie. Chris. Now the meat of our meeting.
Okay, so one hot, fresh topic. So we are, you all got an updated warrant, I think yesterday from Tracy. So we're currently working with a 29 article warrant. May still shrink a little bit, but that's where we are today, is 29 articles. The 9 of them are going tomorrow night to the, based on the referral you made last time or earlier this month, are going to the planning board to start a public hearing. Hopefully that'll be wrapped up in a meeting or two. That's scheduled to go to advisory, I think on the 8th, and come back to you hopefully on the 13th. That's the current schedule for the zoning articles. There are, let's see, you put 5 articles on the warrant last week. I'm going to see if we can't add 4 more tonight if you're interested. Then advisory picks up all of these plus on Thursday they're getting a presentation from Sasha Votek from Superintendent Tom Hickey and our representative George Cooney to talk about their proposed bond for upgrades to the Votek. So they'll be hearing that on this Thursday, and the plan is to have them come in front of you folks on the 13th as well. Providing time permits. So, and again, if you folks want to hear it, I would gather you probably do. So, but if what you hear from advisory next week is fine, we can just coordinate that. So let me share with you, so everyone can see what we're going to talk about. The articles I would like you to consider, if you would be willing to consider tonight. And these are all financially related articles. I know we have Don in reserve. He can jump in if I make mistakes. Okay, so here is the warrant. Let's see if I can make this a little bigger. Sorry, I don't see it. So this is an article which we've been fortunate not to have to use for the last couple of town meetings. Unfortunately, COVID threw a wrench into a lot of things, and one of them was unpaid bills from prior years. So there's actually 6 of them here. The biggest one being a quarterly payment that we ought to hold for this joint animal control officer. Something happened in the translation between them and us at the end of last year. So we definitely owe them the money. The money was there, so it's not a terribly big deal. And the others all involve, again, an expense, as little as $173 for DPW for something that may have literally slipped through the cracks somewhere. One of these is for Deutsch Williams. It's an old bill. It goes back 3 years. Again, that kind of got stuck in the transition between Deutsch Williams and Brooks Durensis. Paul and I talked through it the other day, so this will put a bow on that, which is awesome. And there was another 2 small, one mid-sized bill and 1 small bill that also at the end of last year, I don't know quite what happened. So that's the $1,716. These are all actual services that were actually provided. So. Those are the unpaid bills. We don't expect anything else. I reminded everyone in our management call today that they better have found them by now if it was from last year. And we hope never to have this happen again. We actually had a nice run of not having these happen.
2 years, yeah.
Yeah, so this is, it's an anomaly. I'm sorry to have to present it, but I do, and they're all actual expenses. I'll stop the share.
Chris, could you just, I think in the warrant, just put what fiscal year those bills are from?
Sure,
I think
sure,
just as
sure.
a way of, identifying, giving the public as much information. And that typically would be one motion at town meeting for the total, is that right?
Yeah, correct. And I forget the number of votes. It's a high percentage. It's like,
It's a 2/3, I believe.
no, I think it's like
No?
80%, Diana.
Oh.
Something large.
I
Yeah.
think, oh yeah,
It's like
you might be
90%.
right.
It's like 90% of the special, and it's like 80% or something. So, I mean, it knows the money. It's not like we don't know the money. And again, these are, I mean, they're kind of random. Some of these, quite frankly. You can see that actually. I think all of them except for one. Again, that the old Deutsche Women's bill is all from FY 20. But
Okay.
I'll double check that.
Okay, thank you. Corey, you had a question?
Yeah, I didn't necessarily catch it on your screen share, Chris, but on the copy that was sent to us, the final sentence says there are no unpaid bills reported at this time.
Yeah.
Fix that.
Thank you for picking that up. That is language from a past year. We probably should fix that. So,
Yes. So please fix that, and then you can attach the unpaid bills below that. Thank you.
So we just leave those in there just to see if anyone's reading it. So it's
Good work, Corey. Excellent. All righty. Jack, your hands up. Do you have a question now, or is that
No,
from
it
before?
just-
Sorry,
It didn't
didn't go down.
come down.
Okay. All right, great.
so that's so that's Article 6.
You want a motion to put that on the warrant?
If you would, I would appreciate that because I'm going to take it to advisory on Thursday to get there.
Okay, so just for all of our reminders and also for the public, this literally just places the article on the warrant. It doesn't mean we're going to recommend approval of it. It's just really to just get this warrant filled out with the details so we can bring them to the other boards for recommendations. So
I move that we place Article 6 on the warrant.
is there a second? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote for Article 6. Jack?
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Harry Thompson, aye.
Okay, the next one is Article 7. At least the Article 7 is on the current warrant, and it's supplemental appropriations. There's only one. That is to release the money to Cohasset 143 TV. Through the third quarter it was 183,725. When we get the final check, it'll be added to that as well. So we'll give them the entire amount. And this is actually this is a sharp increase from past years because the new contracts are fully kicked in, so it's good. So this would be transferred once the votes pass. So this will once the articles approved at town meeting, Don will be able to transfer the money.
Great. Corey, I was going to ask you to comment on this, so shoot.
Yeah, this is the drum I keep beating. A couple weeks ago there seemed to be a discussion about finding a different way to manage funding for this. As being on the 143 TV board, being paid a year in arrears is a challenge and not one that we're eager to continue. So I urge the town manager to continue to explore alternative ways to get our public access TV station funding in a more prompt manner.
So hopefully in a normal year, we'd be transferring money in the fall and the spring. There is a way, I believe, and I'm going to talk to Don Pyatt about about creating this as an enterprise fund. It does. It's a little more complicated, but it can be done. So
there is also, I believe, Senator O'Connor has been working on on a bill to add some revised language with it. So you might want to reach out to him and just see what's on the map and what stage it is. That way you don't kind of do double work for no reason.
Yeah, it might be. I mean, if they're going to fix the Municipal Modernization Act again, that would be awesome. And then we could just adopt that after they adopt it, maybe in a special town meeting in the fall or something. So I'll follow back with his office, Corey.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
So if you could just, if the board would be willing to add this to the warrant, unless there's any other questions.
I do have one question, which is, so basically the town is just a pass-through, but we need town meeting authorization to pass it over to,
Correct.
to the 143 TV, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, this is, yeah, go ahead, Corey, I'm sorry.
Yeah, what I was going to say, this isn't on anyone's taxes. This is a charge which is collected from Verizon and Comcast, which is specifically for the purposes of our public access or public and educational governmental stations. So yeah, the town is simply a pass-through, and this is just approving that pass-through function.
Great. Okay, so if somebody would like to make a motion to put this on the warrant for town meeting,
Make a motion to place Article 7, supplemental appropriations for fiscal 2021 on the warrant.
second?
Second,
Great. Okay, roll call, please.
Jack Creighton, aye.
While I don't have any fiscal or any monetary, stake in the board, I will abstain from this vote.
Okay, Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie Thompson, I.
Great, thank you.
Okay, the next one is Article 8. And this is a little different than past years because we would normally have made a number of these transfers in the fall. So I'm going to have to just run this by council to make sure that the form is fine. I think it is. If you look, there's actually 7 of these, and so 4 of them, the first 4, the transfers from free cash for capital stabilization, the OPEB trust fund, the general stabilization, and the special education stabilization would have been made in the fall. So
And those are from free cash from
those are from-
FY20.
Those are from our certified free cash in the treasury of the town now. So all of that can be done with an effective date of now. I put June 1st just to differentiate that it's this fiscal year, not next fiscal year. It could actually be May 25th, the day of the meeting. The other 3 represent money. The first one's coming out of general. That's actually in the budget, so that can't actually move until the budget goes into effect on July 1 anyway. The OPEB trust fund, that's the contribution that we're recommending be made for next year's budget. So it wouldn't go into the fund until July 1 to match the budget that gets approved, if it gets approved. And then the sewer revenue is still kind of uncertain. They always budgeted an amount to go over because their budgets are still a little bit of flux. That number's not in there yet. So that would also be a July 1 transfer. So this would, again, and by the way, just to be specific, the OPEB trust fund matches the commitment that the town has made in the OPEB policy. The general special ed stabilization is a roll-off plus that comes from the school. So the schools have been turning back money every year. And when they do, we usually round it up a little and then include it as a contribution to the special education stabilization fund, which is, by the way, fortunately not had to have been tapped by anybody yet, but it's, we're not quite at the max, but this actually puts it in. And I don't give us the amount that this would raise it to. I don't remember off the top of my head. So any questions?
Nope.
So I think the one thing would be when we vote for approval of this, both at the meeting and also at town meeting, is to do exactly what you said, that the reason is that special town meeting never occurred and it's money already in the bank. We're transferring it because of that, and the following 3 after that are this year's. That's all.
Yep.
I mean, rather than try to do a special, I was hoping there would be no need to do a special town meeting. I don't think we have to for this. I think this works. So.
Okay, great. Jack?
Yeah, so what is the total amount that we have in the free cash account right now?
The total free cash that was generated last year, Don give you specific. Well, why not just let me give you the specific numbers, right?
Hi, Don.
Low, 2.3 million, Jack.
Okay, so we're spending this money here, we're spending it out of that 2.3.
Correct.
Okay. So we'll end up with how much after we've spent all this?
Well, I'd have to just double check. I know we made a couple small tweaks. It's got to be somewhere between 150 to 200,000 at the end of the day between the stabilization and the article you have not yet to see are one-time costs. So
So that 2.3 is going to go away.
for the most part, yep.
Okay, that was my concern.
Just a flag, Chris and Dawn, probably a good idea once we get the warrant wrapped up to review our financial policies. Just to talk through, the percentage that we're budget, that we set targets, floors and ceiling targets for free cash and, for money and stabilization funds and everything. It would probably be helpful for us to review that at some point this spring.
Sure.
I think we could even, I'm sorry, go ahead, Tom.
No, I agree. I think, again, I know I've heard this in a few meetings, but 2.3 is definitely higher than normal. But we had a different type of year in FY20. So there were funds not spent. We still ended the year in a decent revenue cycle. So normally we're within like $1.5 million, $1.6 million. And as of last year, our minimum based on our policy, 3% of the budget was about $1.5 million. So definitely higher than normal, but we definitely had a different year in FY20. So I wouldn't anticipate free cash being that high for the next year, but I think it'd be good either way, just for the group here and the public, just to review and understand those policies a little bit more in depth.
Thank you.
Again, just to follow up on that, Don. So the policy go target was 1.5 to 2 million, and this came in at 2.3. So it was just a little bit above. It wasn't, so it was within a spitting distance of the. Again, as Don said, it was a very unusual year. So, and this is, by the way, the best place to put that kind of one-time money is into things like stabilization funds and things like that, right?
That's the goal. Yep. Great. Thank you.
I move that we place Article 8 on the warrant.
Second,
Okay. Roll call, please.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Ray Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Okay. Article 9 is capital budget. That's coming. Article 10 is Department revolving funds. You've already put that on the warrant. That's just an annual thing now as part of the Municipal Modernization Act. That just sets annual spending limits. And here is the next one for you tonight, which is Article 11, which is funds for one-time costs. So one of the things that we did last year, and we're going to continue this year, is not putting things in the budget and keeping them aside. And the largest part of that is our consulting services. What we did last year is we set aside an article, and then we tapped it as needed, and we went back to the board and said, this is what we want to do, and is everyone good? And again, we've been back to the board several times to tap this. And I think the article was for 50. There's increasing requests, I think, looming from the zoning working group and some of the other working groups, including potentially the Economic Development Task Force, to have some additional funds available. So these aren't differentiated per se, but it becomes an available pot of money to do consulting or other professional or technical support during the year as needed. And again, it would be money that would be spent after consulting back with the select board to say, hey, this is something we're recommending doing, or some board is recommending doing. One of the things we'd like to build into the budget, so we know we have the reserve fund that's controlled by the advisory committee, and that's for unanticipated emergency expenses, et cetera. We'd like to build a little contingency line. We just have not been able to do it the last few years, not for very much money. The goal here is 25. There's sometimes just very small one-off costs, whether it's a grant we're applying for, there's a match, or there's some small service, like, for example, maybe we had to do a site like, for example, a piece of real estate becomes available, we do a quick assessment of it or something like that, just to have money available. If it doesn't get spent, it gets turned back. That would just be something available to use as needed. It could be for any department on the town side. There's a. Do you want me to wait till the end, Diane? Or do you want me to go through the answer questions as they come?
It depends on Carrie and Jack both have their hands up. Do you want to ask now while we go along? Is it?
You can go through them, Chris, if that's easier.
I'm fine either way. So
Keep rolling.
So the contract settlement. So we have some contracts that may not be settled by the end of the year. We just want to make sure there's some money available to pay them. to put them into the budget, right? So we don't want to budget money that hasn't been approved. So, and again, if the money, if the contracts are settled, then we're not going to need it. Sandy Beach parking lot. So this is something that we did last year on kind of a impromptu emergency basis, and they've asked us to do it again. And I actually recommend that the board consider that again. This would pay them to manage the lot. They actually had people assigned to it. And this is basically the same price as it cost last year. It may be that they don't have the same pressures this year, so they may end up not needing this. We've talked through that. So this would pay for the full service they did last year, the 7 days, all day, basically. It may be that pressure comes off because the pandemic eases and people start itching their, getting their travel itch on and going different places. I do think it's fair to say that the demand for the beach had been increasing regardless of the pandemic. So I think there's probably an ongoing demand, and having tighter management helped make the beach work better last year. So this would just be a 1-year proposal as we continue to explore options for the long-term management of the lot. So, and again, it's very possible there'll be some restrictions as the year begins. We're not really sure how this is all going to shake out because the beach tends to open in June. Hopefully, as the summer goes on, it'll be easier. But this is an extension of the program from last year. We'll often put aside a chunk of money for the facilities department. There's often random things that are beyond the budget, whether it be a replacement of a window or a door or something at the schools, a sink. This allows for that kind of work to be done, or this piece of equipment that's above and beyond what the budget would be. We've built the budget stronger and stronger. I think considering the weird year where we've been in and what we might be in next year still, it's just good to have a little flexibility. The teen center, this is following up on the conversation we had. I actually just met with Nick the other day to go over a window and door proposal, which looks very exciting. So they've actually already replaced one of the toilets, which is awesome. So that's done. But this is a bigger, the doors and the door and windows are going to be, I think, $16,000, $17,000 from what I said. So they're not going to be able to do that work until they get this approved. And then, and there's an 8-week lead time. So once we get a green light from you folks, hopefully the advisory, hopefully Thursday, and you folks next week, Nick can actually just let them know we're looking to do this and be ready, and so we can get the work done this summer. The tennis court study, this is something we had on the warrant 2 years ago, and I was prepared to go on last year's one, and we pulled it because the pandemic was definitely not a time to look at this. Tennis is probably the hottest sport right now from a growth sport at the high school. The boys and girls tennis teams, the girls in particular, are huge, JV and varsity, and the town has 5 courts. So outdoor courts. There's some indoor courts and private facilities, but there's only 5 outdoor courts. This would study, and this is a presentation that was ready last year. That had been presented to folks, and we're just bringing it back to look at some other alternative sites and both to explore the expansion of pickleball has become the hottest thing. I got to tell you, I've not played it yet, but it seems to be the hottest thing around. We've already restriped some of the courts. So this could include, that look too, because court space is not just tennis, it could be pickleball as well. So this definitely seems to be a great need, or at least a great need for discussion of expanding it. The dock and waterways repairs, that's something we've been doing every year. We have money that goes into the waterway fund every year, and this just allows it to be spent. And then the harbor master says, yeah, we need to fix this dock, or we need to do this. And it needs to be appropriated out of the fund every year to make it available. The last one is something new, and that is the South Shore Irish Heritage Trail. I'm hoping to have a little more of a presentation for you at some point. But basically, it's a trail that'll run from Weymouth to Plymouth, and it runs right along the coast. And it identifies Irish heritage sites in Cohasset. For those of you who do not know, Central Cemetery is home to the Briggs St. John Memorial. There was an Irish famine ship that wrecked off the coast. All these people fleeing the famine, and all but 7 died rocks before they got to the coast. And the victims were buried in the Central Cemetery in a large unmarked grave, and a big memorial was placed. And it actually was, I've seen some of the photos from 100 years ago. The crowds from Boston would come down, the mayor, everyone would come down, and they'd go to the memorial. And there's still a ceremony there every year as part of the Situate's work with Ireland. So that would be one of the stops. There's a Mossing Museum in Situate, and there's a Summer Memorial in Hull. And so basically this would link them all. There's actually a whole working group on this. And every town would have spot, and this would also be an opportunity to bring in local businesses. So if you're taking the tour, oh, here's these great places to shop and eat in Cohasset, right? So, and other communities. There's an ask for every community to kind of participate in building this e-database of businesses. I'm trying to get a number on this. Since our town meeting is ready, this town meetings that are very early, that they weren't able to put this on yet. But I don't think it was very much money. It was a 4-digit number, and I'm just trying to get confirmation on it. I don't have it in there. I will have it in there for Thursday. Otherwise, they can't. No one can look at it. So, questions on any of those items? I think there were several.
Yep. Carrie had a question. Looks like everybody's got their hands up, so we'll go starting with Carrie.
You answered my question. I do think we just need to think longer term about Sandy and what their needs might be for the beach parking and beach access and all of that. So I don't think we need to discuss it now, but I do think it's something we will need to keep talking about.
Just to follow up on that, Carrie, I have met with the president and the treasurer of the board, and they're looking to talk with all of you over the summer informally, just to get you down to the beach, explain how they operate, and then maybe come back in front of the board in the fall to talk about something more long term. So that's on the agenda in the future.
Great. Paul? Your hands
So
up.
a couple of things. Is there anything there for potential public health? Because I presume we're probably going to get into the point where we'll be doing a booster vaccine for public health. And the other thing, with the Brig St. John, when that went down, Thoreau came down and wrote a unbelievable, very personal letter about that. So that goes clearly to the history of the town. That's it.
Thank you. Corey?
Yeah, just first mirror what colleague Carrie Thompson said about figuring out Sandy Beach, but also I feel obliged to ask about a $20,000 for a tennis study. It seems like a lot of money. Seems like you could probably build a court for that. Can you explain a little bit more how that number is so high?
So I'm going to have to dig out. There is a proposal that explains this, and it's from a company that actually does tennis courts. So part of it was assessing sites, literally assessing sites, and then recommending. I believe this actually went all the way through, like recommending a proposal, right? It wasn't just going around saying, "Oh, tennis courts would look nice here." It'd be like, "Here's a plan for adding 6 courts to this location with this, and this is what it would cost to do this and this and this." So it would. We had some robust meetings a year and a half ago about this with the girls tennis team and folks from the high school athletic department, and there's not a lot of land in town. There is some land in town. We have the existing courts, right? So one of the questions is, what do we do with those existing courts? I mean, we've done some resurfacing and some restriping. Do we need to? Should there be a big repave and reconstruction of those? Is that where the focus is going to be? And is there any? I mean, there's been some talk about finding location around the schools to see if there's a place you can add another set of courts. And can you bubble any of these? I think the question was broader than just where you could do more tennis courts. What would they look like? What are the best materials? Can you bubble them or not? Can you light them or not? So it was a little bit part of that. But let me circulate the materials, Corey, so you can all look at it.
Yeah, just on that, Chris, and I again, when we have a more comprehensive conversation about recreation facilities in town, it'll be key. But it says that request is from DPW. Is that correct, or would it be from RAC? Or
yeah, it probably should say.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's been managed by DPW because it was a construction project initially, right? So they actually got the bids because not the bids, the proposals. Michelle arranged for the proposals. It probably should say recreation. That's a good point.
Okay. Corey, do you have a follow-up otherwise I'll go to Jack.
I'm good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't want to go into it a lot, but at this point, but
frozen?
it seems to me when we see these studies here and there, we have a pretty robust town staff. So why can't these be handled internally? We have the staffing. We've been staffing up for 10 years. And I would like to see that these types of questions, instead of always being outsourced, I think that's what we have our town hall for.
I think just to follow up, there most certainly are more staff, and there's also a vastly larger number of projects going on. In the last 7 years, the town has gone from no plans or proposals to an active master plan, a harbor plan, an open space, a housing production plan, and we now have a planner. The town had no planner before. That said, I can't.
And an assistant, right?
No, there's always been another person down there. So
Okay.
the department is now staffed up as a unit, right? So Jen Orem, who supports planning and zoning, always supported zoning, but has expanded her role. But there was someone before Jen in that role. These are for more, big kind of outside, like a zoning analysis, right? I'm not one parcel zoning analysis that Lauren or John might be able to do. This would be potentially a look at a rezoning of the entire village, or looking at a rezoning of part of 3A, for example. It could be like the money that this board approved a few meetings back to do public meetings with an outside group about design for Elm Street, right? The staff can most certainly manage those projects. That said, if they would do, and again, they most certainly could do them, but if they did them, it would mean that they wouldn't be doing other things that are part of the routine. I mean, the volume of, it's good and it's exciting. That said, the volume of things that go on here is higher than normal for a town of our size, because the community wants it that way. There's the Elm Street corridor, for example. That whole study involves sewer, water, the potential redevelopment of the Cohasset Harbor Inn, a whole streetscape improvement, some environmental mitigation. That's kind of, that charrette, the committee, the Elm Street Working Group said, hey, we should really bring in a company that does these public meetings and can help manage that.
Yeah, we brought a consultant just to run a series of meetings. And I don't think we need to discuss this at length right now. We need to move this discussion on, but I think it's something that, a lot of people around town are starting to notice, starting to ask. And I know about a year ago, I asked for a list of all the new hires over the past 10 years. So we just have some data to get terms on that. But let's move on this. I just wanted to bring that up. It seemed a good time to bring it up. Thanks.
My internet fuzzed out at the beginning of your comments, Jack, but one of the questions I had, or comments I had.
You're very lucky.
No, because I think I'm just going to be redundant to what you just said, which is, $100,000 consulting service line item just reads more information is needed. So I think to the extent that we can flesh that out, and obviously, being on the Elm Street corridor, knowing the work economic development's doing, and all the incredible work that's needed to be done at the harbor, and things that our staff literally, no matter what size it is, can't and shouldn't, because they're more generalists and management people as opposed to experts in certain areas. So I totally support whatever funds we need to actually move these planning documents forward. But at the same time, I do think for the warrant, we need to be very, as not specific, like $25,000 for, to Woodard and Curran or whomever, but really just generally so people understand what that consulting services are, and be able to explain the process for accessing those funds.
Which is the reason we're talking tonight, so we could get all that material together and make sure that.
Absolutely.
Then again, remember, at the end of the day, it's up to you if you all decide that you support it, right? And if you don't, then it'll just come out. So.
Great. So that was Article 9 or 10?
11. That was Article 11.
11. So do you need a motion to put that on the warrant?
That'd be great. So we can go to advice.
Okay.
I move that we place Article 11 onto the warrant.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, great. Roll call, please.
Jack Creighton. I'm going to abstain from this. I need more information.
Okay.
Ray Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Stewart, aye.
Carrie Thompson, aye.
Okay. And it's just the heading article number, and we'll get into the details and whether we recommend them or not. And one of the things that we've done in the past, if people have concerns about something within an article, we can request that that gets voted separately, or both in terms of the recommendation and for town meeting. So we'll have those conversations once these articles get reviewed by advisory and any other relevant boards. So we also had an update from Alternative Energy on our docket for tonight, but I don't see Tanya in the waiting room, and we had tried to reach out to her, I think today. So Chris, I think we might postpone that unless you have any updates from Michelle or.
No, I think there's several open issues that I should say open projects that the board was going to be updated on, and I think I mean, I could talk on a very limited basis about a couple of them. But I think it'd be better if it came from the committee. And I know Tanya's been traveling for work a lot lately, so
Yep.
and I did not have a chance to circle back with her today. So and again, you're right, I don't see her at the waiting room. So.
Okay. Yeah, I did speak generally with her last week, and we were hoping to get an update on aggregation in particular, just to kind of inform the community as to what's going on with that, and then any areas they may be working with other committees or other proposals for town meeting. But we'll see if we can get them on for next week.
The one thing I can talk about is aggregation, because I was
Okay.
a few weeks ago. It is at the DPU, the Department of Public Utilities, with a number of other plans. And the DPU has been a little bit, these are not timed. A lot of the proposals that they get are on blocks. These are not. So and again, the pandemic has most certainly slowed a lot of work down, right? So everything is Zoom and everything is, and it's a very paper and process oriented unit. So things have just gone more slowly. That said, we're in regular contact, and we're watching it. I know our consultant, Good Energy, which is also working with several of our neighbors, including Situate and Marshfield, is on top of this and staying in regular communication. So the plans have been presented. We're hoping they're going to go to something called, I think it's called ascertainment, where they ask a lot of questions. And I'm told that the review process, which used to be comparatively moderate, has gotten much more intense, which I don't entirely understand, because the aggregation process is really no different than it was 5 or 10 years ago. But that said, that's where it is. So it's still there. The plan has been presented, and we're just waiting for the DPU to do its next stage. And then that will, hopefully they'll give it a green light at some point, and then it'll go back to you after there's a bidding process. So, but again, they do have a warrant article too, so maybe I can combine them coming to talk about their warrant article at the same time as just an update. So we'll see.
That'd be great.
Maybe
All
next
right.
week.
Okay, thank you. So actually that means we're right on time, and we'll go right into the town manager update.
All right, because we've been meeting every week, and we just did a lot of warrant stuff. I have really nothing new at this point. Just a reminder that cybersecurity, which Ron, I don't know, did I? There's so many meetings, I'm forgetting where we talked about them. So the town is part of a cybersecurity grant, with cybersecurity training. So everyone, I think all of you should have gotten an invitation to the training, I think. We're asking every board and committee member to participate, just like staff. We think it's going to be a great tool. For one, I think it's going to educate all of us in the realities of cybersecurity, and it's going to not only help us governmentally, but most certainly in our personal lives. The other thing is that the training will also potentially get us discounts on our insurance. So if we reach a certain level of participation on staff, and I also believe on board and committee members, because every community is not included board and committee members, and quite frankly, board and committee members are as active with our domain as anyone. It's important that everyone understands the parameters and gets trained in this.
From their own personal computers too, which adds an extra layer of risk.
So please, when you get that, board and committee members, please take part. And if you have any questions, you can contact our office or Ron directly. Ron Menard is overseeing and it's a school and town. It's everybody, all staff members and members of all of our boards and committees have been reached out to. So we're excited about it. And that's really all I have to say.
Great, thank you. Jack has his hand up.
Yeah, and we're on cybersecurity. I think people should be thinking about the fact that as town officials, we should be using our town emails, which are archived and required to be archived. And the question is, how secure are our emails? Like, I know in Plymouth, there was a big deal, I don't know how many months ago, where the town manager, I'm not addressing this to you, Chris, but the town manager in Plymouth was, for evidently political reasons, was going in using the power of the archives to look at various town officials and elected and appointed officials to monitor their emails. Does our cybersecurity policy protect against that? And do we have any way, Chris, that that's dealt with?
So did you order a pizza earlier? I couldn't read the email properly. No, I'm kidding.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Thank you. And it hasn't arrived.
Yeah.
So I want you to get it. I'm hungry.
So there is that we upgraded a year, maybe 2 years ago, to a higher level of Outlook. So we're it's a tier 3, I think it's called. So there's much more enhanced security in the town's email system than it had been, which is great. In terms of access, the only people who can really access this is the IT folks. I mean, the only email box I can see is my own and the town manager one, which I share with Tracy and Justine. And that's the way they're set up. If there's FOIA requests and they come in, then Ron has the ability to tap them. If there's a FOIA request and we have to search them, do that. We let people know that they're being looked at. So it really is incumbent on. And again, I thank you for raising the point, Jack, that it is much easier if you're on a board and committee to keep your official emails on the official email system. Otherwise, we just had one not so long ago, and someone had to go searching their own personal emails. Now we can't really go do that. But you have to. And if the person looking doesn't believe you, they can complain to the Secretary of State's office. And then you end up fighting with the Secretary of State's office over access to your personal emails.
Well, the other thing is, let's say you have an email and you say, oh my God, I don't want this, and you delete it. If it has to do with town business, you have now deleted a public document. Every time we talk, or any board and committee, every time you email, it becomes immediately a public document. And if you delete it, then you have deleted that. And you're not doing it on purpose, but I think boards and committee members should be aware that when you start, that you can inadvertently get yourself in a whole pile of trouble, which you really don't need, because we're all unpaid volunteers here.
And thank you for raising that too. So you got a whopping, what, $70 a month?
Oh, I gave mine up, but now they tell me that even though I gave it back to the town, I'm still gonna have to pay taxes on it. But I believe in trusting government. It's good for me.
I'll segue, because I think one of the things that we've been talking about and we'll continue to talk about is revising the committee handbook and doing a better job at setting up training, because there is a lot of responsibility and expectations from our volunteers, and we want to make sure that they're A, aware of them, B, that we give them the tools so that they can succeed and it doesn't become a barrier to doing and serving in town government, because the rewards are they're frequent in so many ways. So we want to make sure that people understand the roles and responsibilities, but also that they have the tools to succeed and to minimize the work that they have to do relating to this kind of thing. So
and we want to protect them.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the point. I mean, if you're on the town email server, you don't have to worry about archiving. It's all archived. Everything's archived. Everything's there. And by the way, we don't have to. Every email doesn't have to be retained forever. There's actually a general 7-year window, and then there's stuff that can be eliminated almost immediately if you schedule them.
Yeah. Scheduling
doesn't. You can throw, once the meeting happens, you can throw away the scheduling emails because they've already happened, right? So.
Right.
The key is to catch policy and stuff, and there is a guide. It's actually a little more complicated than it might seem. The Secretary of State's office has it. So if actually I'm at the point now where I can start cleaning out emails from 7 years ago, because you don't have to clean, and I do throw out some of the scheduling ones because they're already on my calendar. But otherwise, they just go and run, and every day they're retained. So it makes it a lot easier if people use their town email. That way it's all archived. You don't have to worry about it. And if there's something has to be searched, it can be searched. So.
Great, thank you. Chris, is that it for your comments? All right, select board comments. Jack, you want to start?
I think we should move forward on this and adjourn.
We got a few more little things, but we'll go really quickly, I promise. Corey?
My colleague Carrie Thompson and I are both on the Cohasset Economic Task Force. And this is not really an official update, but I do want to say that we're going to start reaching out to residents that may want to be involved in some sort of community foundation. The discussion earlier about the benches really brought that back to the front of my mind, that trying to get a bunch of engaged residents together about making our downtown more accessible, more beautiful, more useful, more inviting. I think that's something that we all can get behind. So I'm excited. And if you find yourself being somebody who's excited about that too, please reach out to me, cevans@cohassetma.org, or contact Chris Senior, and he can obviously forward your contact information to me. Thank you.
Great. Paul?
3 quick things. One, with the schools now, their busing ability is limited because of COVID. There's a lot of traffic kind of at the beginning of the day, end of the day. So I would avoid Sawyer Street, Pond Street. It makes it a little bit easier. Find another way around town for that, that hour of transport trouble that's there.
And go slowly.
And go slowly. Yeah. The other thing, Easter and Passover is coming up, so please make it as small a gathering as possible to prevent spread. We're seeing lots of numbers come back in South Shore. I don't want to see another wave. I think we can get through this. And the third thing was, I think that's it. I can't remember the third thing. It'll be for the next meeting. That's it.
Carrie?
Yes, continuing to support our small businesses. It seems like things are going really well with vaccinations and more of our town is getting vaccinated, and that's exciting, but keep supporting our small businesses and restaurants especially. I also want to give some special love and a shout out to all of our members of our community and business owners who are Asian and Pacific Islander. I know this has been a really hard week and a really hard year for those people. And I think we need to make sure that we can support everyone in our community, especially those who identify as that. Also, don't forget to register your beach stickers for your cars. That can be done online or at the dump. So get that done. And nomination papers are still open. I know I've been talking to a few people who are considering maybe throwing their hat into the ring, and we need more people to step up. No election should ever go uncontested, in my opinion. So get those application papers for signatures.
And I'll jump right off that and just say that for those that don't have the stomach to necessarily run for an elected office, or whatever that elected position might be, is not as appealing. There's many we'll be doing committee appointments right after town meeting and the election, and there's so many committees doing incredible work that we're talking about, weekly. So feel free to reach out to any of us to learn a little bit more about where your skills and talents might best be placed on a town committee or an elected position. Chris, Corey, one thing is, if you want to do an update on economic, the work of the Economic Task Force at any point on an agenda coming up, let me know.
Yeah, we'll have something for you probably in a few weeks.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then Chris, just when we were talking earlier, one thing that came to mind was if we could have an update in some near future on Wadley Park, because summer will be coming. And the last time we left, we were considering adding parking, having some concerns with the land or whatever. So just that general area and parking for summer, because that always tends to be kind of a busy, crazy time. Yeah. Corey, did you?
Well, on that note, that also we need to keep that in mind for the broader kind of beach sticker discussion, because the same stickers used on that for parking there. So we have to kind of keep that in mind too.
Yeah, and I was thinking of it earlier when we were talking about places for benches. So right, the leg bone's connected to the thigh bone. So we'll keep all of these conversations going. Chris?
And then there was one last thing, I don't know if this is already on your list, Diane. There was talk about a meeting on April 6th, possibly. You and I had talked about.
Yes.
Yes, yes. So possibly with capital getting close, but maybe not quite there. And same thing with CPC, maybe giving them each one more week and pushing them to the 6th. I don't have confirmation of that. But if the members of the board are available on the 6th, maybe do that night for those. And then I know that there's a public hearing scheduled for next week on the corner stop, which I think might generate some public comments. So it might ease that meeting a little bit anyway. So
Yeah, if anybody has any conflicts with the 6th, it looks to be like that's the most likely opportunity for a joint meeting with advisory, although advisory has posted for the 30th with us to review capital budget and CPC. We're just not 100% sure that's all going to come together this week. So stay tuned and let me and Tracy know if you have any conflicts meeting on the 6th. And we'll try to keep meetings as tight as we can in terms of scheduling, especially when we're meeting weekly. Okay, that is it from me. We have 2 sets of minutes, the minutes from the 9th and last week, actually, the March 16th minutes, if everybody's read them and would like to make a motion to approve them.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes of 2/9/2021 Board of Select Board, Town of Cohasset, and 3/16/2021 Cohasset Select Board.
Is there a second? Okay, roll call, please.
Jack Creighton is my longstanding position as clerk, that when we have the existence of the electronic way to permanently keep all of these, that those should be used as our minutes. So, nay.
Okay.
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Harry Thompson, aye.
Great. And then Chris and Tracy, could you flag at some point in the near future approval of executive session minutes at an upcoming executive session meeting? Okay, thanks. And then I do have a topic not reasonably anticipated within 48 hours. Just going to make a brief statement. We had an executive session earlier this evening, this was written by counsel, so I'm just going to read it. Earlier tonight, the board held an executive session to discuss real estate issues regarding to the town providing drainage improvements for Atlantic Avenue. We have authorized the town manager, the DPW director, and town council to negotiate with private property owners a right-of-way for a pipeline and pathway across private land to convey floodwaters safely away from Atlantic Avenue in a new, more direct direction than previously discussed with the property owners. We are planning to have a public agenda item on these issues in our upcoming meetings. So it was important because in executive session, as we were discussing easements, we asked the town manager, legal counsel, and DPW director to go forth and have conversations with neighbors. So we wanted to take this opportunity to just inform the public that we are working on this. We will likely have a article to recommend to town meeting and to be placed on the warrant in the future. And that is it on that. Okay. All right. Jack,
Motion to adjourn.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Jack Creighton, aye.
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Harry Thompson, aye.
Great, we're adjourned. Thank you all very much. Have a good rest
Thank
of the
you.
night.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.